I'm sending this recording to you, Inquisitor Kalen, alongside my formal report to the Inquisition, due to the volatile nature of its information. If the Inquisition proper learned what I'm about to tell you, they wouldn't hesitate to wipe out Twisted Cerberus. I'm of the mindset that the chapter is a great resource which shouldn't go to waste, but in the end, it's up to you to make that call. The Doomslayers, as we call them, Twisted Cerberus as they're actually known, are descendants of the Warhounds, otherwise known as the treacherous World Eaters, the sons of the demon Prince Angron. I speculated this in my last report, but learned the truth itself after the Battle of Quintum. This is a secret only known by 3 individuals within the entire chapter. The chapter master knows, the head translator knows, and so too does the chief librarian. I only became privy to the information thanks to the part I played in the Battle of Quintum, but I'll touch on that when I'm there. Before the Horus Heresy, there was a sect within the Warhounds that attempted to control the rage and other drawbacks that came with the Butcher's Nails, a horrible cybernetic implant that made one devoid of joy and incredibly aggressive, as you well know. This sect, or lodge as they refer to themselves, did a host of things to combat the nails which Angron had forced upon them. They had a lingering resentment of their Primarch because of this action, and wanted to be less like him while being more like the Emperor. At its core, the Lodge attempted to show more restraint in combat and act more chivalrous outside of it. This had little impact upon their actual behavior, but it laid the foundation for what Twisted Cerberus would become. When the Battle of Isfahan III began, the Lodge was among the Loyalist Marines that were dropped down to the planet. Records about the battle itself are basically non-existent, however what we know is they survived the virus bombing of the world, and combated the traitors who were sent there to finish them off. As we know, Angron attacked the world with his Marines against Horus's orders. This had a major impact upon the psyche of Twisted Cerberus. Before this, they merely resented their father. After they vowed to be the ones that would put Angron and their traitorous brothers in the ground for good. Like my last report states, a warp phenomenon occurred during the battle which transported Twisted Cerberus to Caliban right before it was destroyed. I have no explanation for this. Same holds true for the chapter itself. However, I like to believe the collective rage of Twisted Cerberus altered the warp ever so slightly, causing the anomaly. But again, this is just me speculating. They are a successor chapter of traitors. However, I know they are not a threat to the Imperium. The things I saw in Quintum have opened my eyes to a reality I never truly saw. On Ares, I saw the aftermath of a battle with Chaos, but that didn't illustrate how much of a threat it is like actually fighting them does. Quintum was a feudal world with a substantial population. From what I was able to gather, a cult-worshipping Khorne emerged on the planet and things escalated quickly. Details are sketchy, but the cult was able to take control of the planet and proceeded to summon Angron, who in turn called upon his legion. The moment Twisted Cerberus heard of this, they mobilized everything. During my last report, I didn't comprehend how large the chapter's navy and auxilia really was. The chapter itself may have been small, but they made up for that with both numbers and the rigorous training of regular people. It was as if this military was from a different time. As if I got a glance of what the Imperium was like when the Emperor still walked among us. I was brought aboard the flagship. I was set to go down with the 3 heads of Twisted Cerberus, that being the Chapter Master, Head Translator, and Chief Librarian, as I mentioned before. Those 3 understood why I was searching for them, and I suspect they wanted to see if they could trust me for a reason I'll explain later. When we arrived within the orbit of Quintum, the fleet of Chaos and Twisted Cerberus engaged one another in a terrifying display that I could only describe as awe-inspiring. The sheer numbers and strength of Twisted Cerberus was able to force Chaos's fleet to pull back to the far side of the world's moon. It should be at this point where I state Twisted Cerberus has much more than just one world, a fact I would only learn about after the battle. In a few thousand years, Twisted Cerberus was able to build a rather impressive stellar kingdom in the darkest reaches of space. I've been saying the chapter isn't a threat, and I still believe this. However, it would be wise to keep an eye on them. They could become a noticeable pain for the Imperium if the unimaginable happened. After giving me a sniper rifle and orders to assist them from afar, I got into a drop pod alongside the other 3 heads. The moments before the drop were among the longest in my entire life. Up until then, I had never seen actual combat. I was terrified, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. When we broke the atmosphere and hit the ground, I blanked. I know I followed the heads into the flaming hellscape of a world, and I know I killed the cultists that came within range, but for the first few hours of combat, I was an animal driven by instinct. I couldn't recount the details of the first part of the engagement, even if I wanted to. The event that finally brought me back to reality was when I got separated from the heads. I was charging something alongside a large force of Twisted Cerberus when the translator in front of me was ripped in half by a World Eater. I stumbled, then fell upon seeing this, and was scared out of my mind. I've only ever seen such carnage from afar. I've never been there in the thick of it up until that point. Behind me, I heard the pained screams of a Twisted Cerberus Space Marine who charged the World Eater after seeing this. The sound he made was unlike anything I had ever heard. The Marine of Twisted Cerberus tackled the World Eater to the ground and began wailing on him with his bare hands. Eventually, the pair's fistfight escalated as they both ripped off each other's helmets and dug their fingers into one another's eye sockets. There was no honor or glory in this fight, something that persisted all across Quintum. Eventually, the Marine of Twisted Cerberus got the upper hand and was able to grab his double-barreled bolter, which he discharged into the World Eater's skull. Broken, demoralized, and eyeless, the Marine crawled over to the split remains of the translator, held them close, and began to weep. That display left me speechless, and I began to weep alongside that broken-hearted Marine as a realization dawned on me. The Marines of Twisted Cerberus don't want to fight, but they do it because they know they must. They love conflict and challenge. They love pushing themselves and those close to them to be better than they are today. They love the very essence of being human, and yet they are forced to direct their energy into war because if they don't, everything they cherish will be destroyed. They give their all in every fight as if it was their last, so that one day it will truly be their last as peace falls over the Imperium. They resented Angron for the Butcher's Nails. They grew to hate him because of his betrayal, but they swore to end him for good because he helped deny the peace they longed for. Even if I didn't witness that display, the last moments of the battle would have still led to this conclusion. I met back up with the heads as we cornered the forces of chaos and came face to face with Angron. The head translator ordered me to set up my sniper rifle and provide support as they engaged the Demon Prince. With a chapter behind them, the 3 heads attacked Angron in the briefest, yet most intense fight I have ever witnessed. The 3 heads attacked the traitor at once, which quickly devolved into a fight I just couldn't keep track of. At one point, the Chief Librarian lost an arm and was forced to pull back as he provided support with his psychic abilities. The Chapter Master, blade in hand, engaged Angron in melee as the head translator fired alongside the other Twisted Cerberus Marines who joined the fray. Angron butchered most of those that got within his reach. However, the Chapter Master went blow for blow and didn't give an inch. Eventually, the Demon Prince focused his attention solely upon the leader of his scorned sons. The Chapter Master's defiance didn't last long, as he opened himself up for the briefest of moments, resulting in him losing both of his legs. Angron went in for a killing blow, but before he could strike, I fired my sniper rifle and hit him in the eye, giving the head translator the moment she needed. Picking up a double-barrel bolter from a fallen Marine, the head translator charged Angron, jumped, and wedged the barrel of her gun into the Demon Prince's mouth, as the Chapter Master used what strength he had left to tackle him to the ground. Moments before getting cut in half, the head translator discharged both barrels and blew apart half of Angron's head. Immediately following, the Chapter Master signed a command to the Chief Librarian, who then brought down a thunderous storm of warp energy, which obliterated the area, and sent Angron's spirit back to the warp. What remained of the forces of chaos were either eradicated or retreated. The day had been won, but Twisted Cerberus had lost so much. After the battle, the Chief Librarian told me everything about the chapter, his reasoning being a precaution in case they turned their backs upon the future of humanity. I don't have anything else to say. Whether or not the chapter and the civilization they helped create remains is ultimately up to you. However, I want to state that if there were more people like them in the Imperium, or hell, the wider galaxy, things wouldn't be as fucked as they are. When I see what they've built, I get the impression I'm looking at what humanity could have been, be it if the Emperor still walked among us, or if we merely kept our act together. For one last time, Interrogator, Sarvis Vash of the Ordo Hereticus, formerly Acolyte of the Ordo Astartes, signing off.